Hi, this is Corey Johnston, and today's lesson is going to come from the 51st chapter in the book of Isaiah. It proceeds from a positive foundation to a sharply negative. It begins with an expression of the salvation for Zion and closes with a warning of the cup of divine fury and wrath. But Deutero-Isaiah, that's where a lot of scholars mark a distinction between the 40th chapter in the book of Isaiah, because what comes before it is sort of doom-oriented towards judgments, and the final 27 chapters of the book really emphasize a lot on salvation and hope and promise. So it proceeds from a negative to a positive trajectory, but in this chapter we actually witness a reversal. We're going to start with the positive, which opening verse reads, "Listen to me, you who pursue righteousness, seeking Yahweh. Look to the rock you are hewn from, and to the hole of the pit you are dug from." So listen, whenever a prophet says listen, that means what he has to say is important. These are the words of divinity themselves, spoken through human intermediaries. So what does Yahweh have to say? He has those who seek righteousness. Now in Psalm 14:3, we read that none are righteous, none seeketh after the Father, and also in Psalm 53. But here Yahweh makes a clear distinction that there are in fact some, a remnant. This concept is really going to define the trajectory of at least the first 8 verses. He's speaking to the remnant here, which is a righteous minority. Those are the ones who have not forsaken pursuing him. And if you are not pursuing and seeking Yahweh, who wants to be found, the implications of the word seeking is that, 1, he is knowable, 2, he wants to be known. So if the further you advance and progress in your knowledge of him, the more you will be surprised. That I can tell you from personal experience. I have the personal mindset of a perpetual pilgrim who is never satisfied and always moving from one well of divinity to the next. But he's addressing those who pursue righteousness. Now that entails an ethical obligation to seek after the more exalted forms of divine revelation. And the hole in the pit, this can be interpreted as hell, because hole is the grave, pit is the grave, hell by connection. And so he has rescued us from the pit of our sin and the hole of our sin, and dug us up from hell to restore us to our exalted standing in eternal salvation. "Look to Abraham your father, and to Sarah who bore you, for he was alone when I called him, and I blessed him and increased him." He's reminding them of their ancestor Abraham and telling them to really look back and think and acknowledge of all that I did for him. So from this one elderly couple past the childbearing age sprang this entire nation of people, which were as numerous as the stars in the heavens and as numerous as the sands on a seashore. So wherever he looked, he would have that constant reminder. Sarah was 99, or Abraham was 99 years old when he bore Isaac, and he was called to be a nomad, to wander across the desert. He was uprooted from a comfortable civilized life in a stationary location to become a wanderer, where he would found a nation which he would not live to see. But the promise was vested in him, and what Yahweh told him, that he would multiply him as the stars on the heaven and as the sand on the seashore. And what Yahweh promises, Yahweh delivers. So their existence as a people, the audience to whom he's writing to, is proof that Yahweh is as good as his word, and his prophet is speaking his word. So how you treat the word of the prophet is an accurate indicator of how you treat the word of Yahweh himself. "For Yahweh shall comfort Zion, he shall comfort all her waste places, for he makes her wilderness like Eden, and her desert like the garden of Yahweh. Joy and gladness are found in it, thanksgiving and the voice of song." So Zion, Isaiah predicts and frankly foretells that there's going to be an exile within 2 centuries of his passing. They're going to be transplanted to Babylon, and Zion will be left desolate, the temple destroyed, and the city left in ruin and devastation, uninhabited. But through the faithful remnant in their restoration, they are going to turn a desert wasteland into a wilderness likened unto Eden. So that is an example of Yahweh's redemptive work coming through people who are actively engaged. And they're going to be, thanksgiving is going to be the default state of mind for anyone who has been blessed in any measure by Yahweh, because the blessings he gives is something beyond any being or entity's power to duplicate or emulate in the universe. Listen to me, my people, and give ear to me, O my nation, for the law goes forth from me, and my justice I place as a light to the peoples. Once more, it's that word listen, so we have to concentrate and focus on what's being said here and told here. And it is from he is speaking to his people. These are his chosen people for a select purpose, to bear the world a visible and verbal testimony of who he was and what he was like and what his nature and character was. He's summoning them to give ear unto me, the one who had called them from bondage in Egypt to their settled location. They are his nation and they are in his promised land. And he reminds them that the law of Moses came from him. It wasn't really the law of Moses. It was the law of Yahweh given by him to Israel through Moses. And the word peoples indicates that the blessings of Zion are not for Zion alone, not for his chosen people, his chosen nation, his covenant people. It was also for the peoples. That could mean the nations, so the Gentiles, all of them around there. So they existed not to be a blessing unto themselves, but ultimately to bring a blessing unto others, namely the Gentiles. My righteousness is near, my salvation shall go forth, and my arms judge peoples. Coastlands wait upon me, and for my arm they wait expectantly. So the word my and me really proliferate throughout the 4th and 5th chapter. Let's just review that briefly. Listen to me, my people. Give ear to me, O my nation. The law goes forth from me, and my just judgments I place as a light to the people. And then my righteousness is near, my salvation shall go forth, my arms judge peoples. And then coastlands wait upon me, and for my aim they wait expectantly. So because his righteousness is near, that means salvation can spring, because it is from the foundation of his perfect righteousness that we can actually be accepted and admitted as righteousness, as justified in the heavenly council. So if we try and make it on our own righteousness, the prophet Isaiah, the author of this book in the 64th chapter and 5th verse, says that on our best day, our best works are as filthy rags before him who is without blemish. So we in ourselves are not righteousness enough to have his salvation. It comes from him. Remember, my salvation, it belongs to him. It is his to give to whom he will. And those who pursue righteousness will seek the righteousness that is near them, which is manifest in his form. And the consequences of not doing so is being judged. He judges all the peoples, the Jews and Gentiles alike, so it would be manifestly unjust and therefore a contradiction of his nature to not establish an avenue of salvation for the Gentile peoples. And he's reminding him that the coastlands, the island, the water and land bridges and connectors, they wait upon me, and they're waiting for him to tell them what to do, because they are under his command and under his control. Lift up your eyes to the heavens, and look on the earth beneath, for the heavens shall vanish like smoke, and the earth wear out like a garment, and those who dwell in it die as gnats. But my salvation is forever, and my righteousness is not broken. So we early hear him telling them to listen. This engages the organ of the ear and the sense of sound. Now he's asking them to lift up their eyes. This is the sense of sight and the organs of the eyes, to look up to the heavens and on the earth beneath, because guess what? One day this is a prelude to the new heaven and new Jerusalem, the new heaven and the new earth, when the heavens will vanish like smoke and the earth will be burned or wear out as a garment. And those who are left living in it will be dead as the world which Yahweh has brought its death about. It signed its death sentence, but his salvation is forever. That means eternal, with beginning, but without end, because he is eternal being. Strictly speaking, our salvation can only be immortal, because the difference between eternal and immortal is that immortal has a definitive point of origin which lasts forever, but our salvation lasts forever because it comes from him who was forever, and his righteousness cannot be broken, either can his word or his scripture. So we want to establish that there is an equality between the scriptures that cannot be broken. This is what the Messiah said in reference to his own suffering on the cross. Listen to me, you who know righteousness, a people in whose heart is my law. Do not fear the reproach of men, nor be afraid of their revilings. Once more, it's that word listen. So what he has to say is important, and he's addressing those who know righteousness. These are the ones who seek it and grasp it because his righteousness is near. We read in the 5th verse, and now so having grasped it, they're going to know righteousness, and their heart is going to be aligned with the law, and they will not be legalists because the law of the Spirit fulfills the function of the law, as we read of in Paul's chapter in the 5th chapter of Galatians. And there's really no reason to fear men who can do us injury or be afraid of them, because the fear of Yahweh is the fear which eliminates all other fears. So a fear that is firmly foundationed in Yahweh eliminates all other earthly fears, including death itself, because when we die, we have the assurance and the promise of the resurrection and salvation. For a moth eats them like a garment, and a worm eats them like wool, but my righteousness is forever, and my salvation to all generations. So he's comparing and contrasting the ephemeral, temporal, fleeting nature of the earth. The laws of physics, everything in motion is designed to decay and perish in accordance to the laws of physics. And but what he has to offer, what he is and belongs to him, is as eternal as he is. So he is righteous now, he is always righteous, and he has never not been righteous. It's part of his being, and all his attributes and essences are as eternal as he is. And his salvation is to all generations, all, 3-letter word, all. That means past, present, future, and it's for all peoples, because the Jews existed as a lighthouse to the Gentile people to bring them on the path and promise of salvation. Awake, awake, put on strength, O arm of Yahweh. Awake as in days of old, everlasting generations. Was it not you who cut pride apart and pierced the dragon? So this is Isaiah. This seems to be Isaiah in prayer, because it's not surrounded by quotation marks. So he's asking the sovereign king, the supreme sovereign ruler of the universe, to be awake, alert, and attentive, as he was in the days of old, for former generations, every generation that's ever come, every generation that's going to come. And pride is the sin of Lucifer. This is what precipitated the evil, the existence and element of evil in the universe. It was the sin of pride, because he was an exalted angel who was number 2, but the problem with being number 2 is he got bored of it after a while, so he tried to usurp what didn't belong to him. He wasn't content to be delivering the music up to Yahweh. He wanted some of that music to himself. He tried to ascend to the height of the assembly, but he is cast down to the grave, as are all of his followers. Was it not you who dried up the seas, the waters of the great deep, who made the depth of the sea a way for the redeemed to pass over? So he's reminding of a significant and recognizable moment in Israeli history. This would have been the parting of the Red Sea, which allowed them to escape being redeemed from slavery. They came from Egypt in slavery. Moses performed Yahweh performed through Moses 10 signs and wonders, which were warnings and judgments and condemnations of Egypt, the Pharaoh, and the whole polytheistic system. So they were a redeemed people, at least physically, from physical bondage, but the performance of the Exodus generation in the wilderness leads a lot of observers to the conclusion that maybe they weren't, the majority of them at least, weren't redeemed. They worshipped calves. They did all sorts of things which they shouldn't have, but they still have this reminder of their history in Yahweh, who is greater than all of the failings of those people he calls his own. And let the ransomed of Yahweh return, and they shall come to Zion with singing, with everlasting joy on their heads. Let them attain joy and gladness. Sorrow and sighing shall flee away. So the ransomed would have entailed prison comment, ones who had been released from prison, so they would have been redeemed and ransomed. These terms appear right after one another, so the same connection is the momentum is still there. And they're going to come to Zion. This is the site and center of, this is the most sacred spot in Jewry. It is the site and location of the temple, which will be destroyed while these people are going away. But remember, Isaiah is speaking of not only their return, but also of a future date. So pretty much every prophecy of Isaiah has at least immediate meaning and a future echo. So prophecy, one of the things we learn, especially from studying and dissecting Isaiah, is that the echoes of prophecy sort of rebound throughout the generations, and there's a consistency to them. The Yahweh's word is just powerful like that. But there's going to be no reason to be sad or mourning or anything like that. So it shall flee away. That means go no more. This reminds us also of the new heaven and new earth, Revelation 21. I am he who comforts you. Who are you that should be afraid of man that dies, and of the Son of Man who is made like grass? So he's comparing and contrasting himself to not just their humanity, but any other human. So who is every person is going to die. He is the only one who has the key to eternal life. He is the one who gives us our life on earth, and if we are lucky and pass the test and manage it well, we can live life forever in heaven with him. But why should you fear anyone like you who is going to die when he is the one who comforts us, and not only comforts us in our trials and ails and persecutions and pains and struggles, but also eternally. So we have the eternal comfort from him. And once we have that assurance, there's really no reason to be afraid of what any human or worldly force can do unto us. And you have forgotten Yahweh your Maker, who stretched out the heavens and laid the foundations of the earth. And you continually fear all the day because of the rage of the oppressor, and he has prepared to destroy. And where is the rage of the oppressor? So to forget Yahweh is, the whole point of seeking him is if we don't continually seek him, eventually, inevitably, we're going to forget him. So we have to maintain the momentum of our pilgrim prompting, which aspires after the wells of divinity. Remember earlier I compared it to drinking from a well. We have to thirst after divinity. And he stretched out all in the heavens, and he laid the foundations of the earth. Everything that floats in the heavens or is on the earth owes its existence and origin to him. And we are to continually fear, because remember, the fear of Yahweh eliminates all lesser fears, which are to have no place in the Christian life. And, the rage of the oppressor, anything we're going through at this moment in time, anyone who's bothering us, harassing us, bullying us, or persecuting us in any benign way, shape, or form, they're raging at us right now. But where is the rage of the oppressor at that final day when you are accepted and welcomed into your heavenly homeland for a life well lived? Bowed, he hastens to be loosened, that he should not die in the pit, and that his bread should not fail. So he's talking about man at this point, because we're the only ones who have the potential to fall into hell. So Lucifer's already doomed. He sealed his doom the day he rebelled and became the author of all that is evil in the universe. But our fate is a little more open to mystery. We have to determine that, and it could be predestination. I have mixed feelings with that doctrine, but we're not even going to go there. But I am Yahweh your Elohim, stirring up the sea, and its waves roar. Yahweh, old host of names. So once more, for the second time in this passage, he reminds the reader of his complete control of the element. The seas move at his beck and call. The waves that we see, everything that is there, is an expression of his power, and he is fully capable of unleashing a tidal wave tsunami to express his wrath, because he is Yahweh of hosts, is his name, that is his military name, and the idea or concept of a militant deity offends a lot of contemporary viewers. And I have put my words in your mouth, and with the shadow of my hand I have covered you, to plant the heavens and lay the foundations of the earth, and to say to Zion, you are my people. So the words that Isaiah speaks come from him, and his hand covers him. He doesn't have a literal hand. This is an anthropomorphism where we use familiar, relatable objects to approach the unfamiliar and unexplainable. But the process and the work of regeneration is going to, at least in some sense, belong to us who are blessed enough to be there. So we have a part in the creation, even though strictly speaking, start to finish, it is wholly a divine work. We will at least be able to be there when it comes about. Okay, so this actually marks a distinct turning point. We're going to cut ourselves off early today, and maybe what we're going to do is save this wrath of a wine of divine fury, which it's likened to, and do the 52nd chapter all the way up to the 13th verse, because we already combined the 13th verse and the 53rd one in one we did recently, Isaiah 52:13 through 53:12, the suffering servant. Check that out while you're at it. That's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much. I'm so glad you're here. Stay tuned until next time. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.